The Lady of Elche and the Megalithic Conspiracy. Prologue. The discovery of the Lady of Elche. La Alcudia, Spain, 1897. The sun beat down relentlessly on the dusty fields of La Alcudia. Manuel Campello wiped the sweat from his brow and plunged his shovel into the dry earth once more. The summer heat had turned the soil to concrete, and every strike felt like a battle against the unforgiving ground. But there was something about this particular spot, something that called to him, urging him to keep digging. His fellow workers were scattered across the field, engaged in the same grueling task. Most of them were farmers, like Manuel, conscripted by the landowner to clear the field for the upcoming planting season. Archaeologists had been poking around these fields for years, but they had never found anything of real value. Still, Manuel had heard the stories, tales of ancient treasures buried beneath the earth, waiting to be discovered. And then his shovel hit something hard. Manuel paused, frowning. He knelt down, brushing away the dirt with his fingers. At first, he thought it was just another stone, but as he cleared away more of the earth, a strange shape began to emerge. A curved surface, smooth and cold to the touch. His heart quickened. This was no ordinary rock. "Vengan aquí," he shouted to his fellow workers, waving them over. The others gathered around as Manuel continued to dig, revealing more of the object. Slowly, a face began to emerge from the earth, an elegant, serene face with almond-shaped eyes and an intricate headdress. The workers murmured in awe as the full figure was uncovered, a bust of a woman carved in stone, her expression calm and otherworldly. The archaeologists were summoned immediately. They arrived in a flurry of excitement, quickly realizing the significance of the discovery. The bust was unlike anything they had ever seen, a masterful work of art, perfectly preserved despite the centuries it had spent buried in the ground. As they carefully lifted the statue from the earth, Manuel couldn't shake the feeling that he had unearthed something far more significant than just an ancient artifact. There was a presence about the statue, an aura that seemed to whisper of secrets long forgotten. "Who was she?" one of the archaeologists muttered, examining the bust with wide eyes. "The Lady of Elche," another whispered, naming the figure after the nearby town. "She must have been someone of great importance." Manuel stared at the stone face, its expression enigmatic and timeless. The Lady of Elche. He couldn't help but wonder what secrets this ancient figure held and what tales she might tell if only she could speak. But as the archaeologists packed the bust away, preparing to take it to the museum in Alicante, Manuel felt a strange sense of unease. It was as if the Lady of Elche was not just an artifact of the past, but a link to something far older and more mysterious, something that transcended time and space. Little did he know the discovery of the Lady of Elche would set in motion a chain of events that would uncover one of the greatest secrets of the ancient world, a secret that had been buried for millennia, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Chapter 1. The Origin of the Lady. Iberian Peninsula, 4th century BCE. The Iberian sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the rugged hills. In the heart of the Iberian Peninsula, nestled among the ancient groves of olive and fig trees, lay a hidden sanctuary, an ancient temple dedicated to the goddess Tanit, revered by the people of this land. The temple was carved into the side of a rocky outcrop, its entrance marked by 2 towering pillars adorned with intricate carvings of snakes and birds. Inside the temple, the air was thick with the scent of incense and the sound of low, rhythmic chanting. A group of priests and priestesses, their faces painted with ochre and their bodies draped in white linen, circled a stone altar at the center of the chamber. Atop the altar lay offerings of fruits, grains, and honey, gifts to the goddess in exchange for her protection and favor. At the head of the circle stood a woman, her presence commanding and serene. She was known as the Lady of Elche, the High Priestess of Tanit, and she wielded a power that few could comprehend. Her hair was bound in elaborate coils beneath a headdress of gold and turquoise, and her eyes were lined with kohl, giving her an otherworldly appearance. In her hands she held a scepter, a symbol of her authority and connection to the divine. The chanting grew louder, reaching a crescendo as the Lady of Elche raised her scepter high above her head. The priests and priestesses fell silent, their eyes fixed on her in reverence and awe. "The goddess Tanit hears our prayers," the lady intoned, her voice echoing through the chamber. "She grants us her protection and her wisdom, but she also demands a sacrifice." The assembled worshippers bowed their heads in submission. They knew the power of the goddess, and they knew that her favor could be as fleeting as the wind. The Lady of Elche lowered her scepter and gestured to one of the priests, who stepped forward with a small, trembling lamb in his arms. The lady took the lamb and placed it gently on the altar. With a swift, practiced motion, she drew a blade from her belt and slit the animal's throat. The lamb bleated once, then fell silent as its blood pooled on the stone surface. As the life drained from the lamb, the Lady of Elche closed her eyes and began to chant, her voice rising and falling in a rhythm that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the temple. The other priests and priestesses joined in, their voices merging into a single harmonious sound. In that moment, the air in the chamber seemed to shimmer, and the scent of incense grew stronger, almost overpowering. The lady could feel the presence of the goddess, an ancient, powerful force that had watched over these lands for centuries. She could feel the goddess's approval, her acceptance of the sacrifice. But the Lady of Elche knew that the goddess demanded more than just offerings of blood and grain. Tanit was a goddess of fertility and life, but she was also a goddess of death and destruction. She required balance, and it was the lady's duty to maintain that balance, to ensure that the cycles of life and death continued without interruption. As the chanting subsided, the Lady of Elche opened her eyes. The other priests and priestesses were still bowed in reverence, waiting for her to speak. "The goddess is pleased," the lady announced. "She will grant us a bountiful harvest this season, and she will protect our people from harm. But we must remain vigilant. The world is changing, and there are forces at work that seek to disrupt the balance. We must be prepared." The priests and priestesses nodded solemnly. They had heard the rumors, whispers of strange visitors from distant lands, of new gods and new ways of life. The Lady of Elche had seen it too, the Phoenician traders who arrived on their sleek ships, bringing with them exotic goods and foreign ideas. They spoke of lands beyond the sea, of great empires with vast armies and magnificent cities. But the Lady of Elche knew that these new influences posed a threat to their way of life. The old gods were powerful, but they were also vulnerable. If the people forgot their traditions, if they turned away from the ancient rituals and customs, the gods would weaken, and the balance would be lost. As the ritual concluded and the worshippers began to disperse, the Lady of Elche remained at the altar, deep in thought. She had always felt a connection to something greater than herself, a force that transcended the physical world. It was this connection that had guided her to the role of High Priestess, that had given her the wisdom and insight to lead her people. But lately she had felt a growing unease, a sense that something was amiss. The signs were subtle, a shift in the winds, a change in the patterns of the stars, but they were there, and they could not be ignored. The Lady of Elche knew that she had a responsibility to her people, to protect them from the forces that threatened their way of life. But she also knew that the answers she sought could not be found within the walls of the temple. She needed to seek out the truth, to understand the changes that were coming, and to prepare for the challenges that lay ahead. With a final glance at the blood-stained altar, the Lady of Elche turned and left the chamber. She had much to consider, and time was running out.